Welcome into another edition of Sports Junkies here at RacineSportsZone.com. I'm Steve Sparky Fifer from Sports Radio 105.7 FM, The Fan, host of the Wendy's Big Show weekdays from 2 until 6, co-host I should say. He is Greg Giesen of the Racine Journal-Times. Time to talk a little Brewers baseball as we get ready for opening day. The Brewers and the Rockies season actually starts Sunday night between the Cubs and the Cardinals. Greg, let's talk a little bit about this Brewers baseball team. Doug Melvin said earlier this week that he thinks the roster coming out of spring training this year is much better than the roster that the Brewers came out of spring training with last year. Do you agree?
No. There are too many questions. I mean, you look in the infield, can Scooter hit both sides of the plate? I don't know. I mean, last year you had Ricky Weeks and you had Scooter. As bad as Ricky may or may not have been, you could platoon him. Right. You could at least play to an advantage. Yes, first base will be better.
Yes.
Because it was historically bad the last 2 years. So, okay, you have an upgrade there. Shortstop, I don't know what we have with Gene Segura. He went through a lot of issues last year, and I don't think anyone can fault him. There was a lot of trouble going on. And so, okay, you get a pass, but I don't know what you're going to get from him this year. Aramis Ramirez, you know he's going to get hurt at some point. And if he doesn't, that's great. You're going to be keeping him in and out, trying to keep him fresh. It's his last year. Okay, so you have a whole infield of questions. Your outfield, I don't have a problem with that. Not a worry there. And you have your pitching staff where you don't have a true number one, though it's debatable whether you did last year. But can someone make up the innings that you gave up with Gallardo? I don't know that.
See, and for me, I look at it, and I agree with Doug. I think it is better, and I think it's better for a couple of different reasons. I think it's better because, like you mentioned, first base, Adam Lynn's an upgrade over what you had. Now, the question on him is, can he stay healthy with his back? We'll find out. The rest of it, I'm not as worried about. I think Scooter will be fine against lefties. But where I think the big difference is when you start getting to depth a little bit here. Instead of Logan Schaefer as a fourth outfield, you get Gerardo Parra all year long as a fourth outfielder. That's a huge upgrade, no matter how you look at it, over Logan Schaefer. You get to that back end of that bullpen. You had Jim Henderson following up with K-Rod. Now all of a sudden you have Broxton there with K-Rod. You had Kinsler out there. You had Zach Duke out there, guys like that. And now you bring in power arms. The only question I really have out there with that bullpen, more than anybody else, is Neil Kotz. I think that was a horrible signing. I don't want him on this baseball team. That's the one guy I question. He's had a horrible spring on top of everything else. That's my big question mark. But I think the bullpen is better going into the season than it was last year. I like the fourth outfielder position better. I like the first base position better as well. Now, Hector Gomez, Luis Jimenez, and whatever they do for the other bench position, don't know. I mean, those are unknowns and question marks.
Well, I like the bullpen better too. Don't get me wrong, but here's the problem. If your starters aren't going 6-7 innings, you're going to burn that bullpen out by June. And I think what you saw last year, you saw Zach Duke have a fantastic year, but right about June, July, you had a lot of innings on him, and you started burning out.
Absolutely.
And you've lost 200 innings from Gallardo.
Right.
Who's going to make that up? And if you're not making up that many, you're passing it on to the bullpen.
Right.
And as good as that bullpen may be, if you burn it out early, you're kind of stuck.
It'll be interesting to see how it happens because you've got Tyler Thornburg that can be that long guy. You have Michael Blazek that can be that long guy in that bullpen. And, of course, you have Taylor Youngman down in AAA, who's that other guy. Now, Doug is saying Thornburg and Blazek will be his emergency starters if they need them due to injury or whatever else the key may be. I think the biggest key to this season is Jimmy Nelson. If Jimmy Nelson pitches like Jimmy Nelson pitched in AAA, this Brewers team is going to compete for 90 wins. If Jimmy Nelson pitches like how he pitched in the second half of last year and how he pitched in spring training this year, they're going to be in all kinds of trouble unless somebody can step up and fill that role.
See, and the other question I guess I have is, from what I've heard when I've listened to people talk about it, is that do you think Doug Melvin, if this team does what it did last year early, do you think there's a move to be made to upgrade whether it's the rotation? Because Doug Melvin's always done that. I just don't know what bullets he has to do it.
I don't know. I mean, and before this taping, Hunter Morris, who was a Brewer, he gets traded to the Pirates for a player to be named later. They also have Corey Hart. And the reason they trade him is they have Jason Rogers down there. They have Matt Clark, who they sent down. I think Matt Clark would be a very interesting guy to follow if you gave him 500 bats at the major league level. Adam McKelvey from MLB.com brought it up. He said, Sparky, look at his minor league numbers. It would be fun to see what he could do at Miller Park in that small ballpark with 500 at bats. I don't know if he's going to be the future or not. He's not exactly a spring chicken. I think he's 27, something like that at this point is Matt Clark. But that, I think, is going to be the option for Adam Lynn. They chose not to keep him on the major league roster and send him down to the minor leagues to get regular at-bats, and therefore you push out Hunter Morris. I still think Hunter Morris can play at the big league level. We'll see if that ends up happening or not. He is Greg Giesen of the Racine Journal-Times. I'm Steve Sparky Fifer. We'll see how things go for the Brewers on opening day against the Colorado Rockies. We'll talk to you next time on Sports Junkies here at RacineSportsZone.com.